Tell me you weren't one of the people like me who was sitting in front of the TV tonight saying to yourself, you know what? The Canadiens are going to come out and do it tonight. There's no way they're going to lose to the Senators. They've won 3 straight against them. They dominated them all year. They've got to win this hockey game. They're going to clinch the playoff berth, and everybody's going to be happy. What happens? You watch the first period and say to yourself, oh, fuck. Time to drop the puck on Montreal Hockey Talk. Hey, everybody. Costa here from Montreal Hockey Talk, and not my finest intro, but it is what it is. The Canadiens were absolutely unprepared for the onslaught brought by the Ottawa Senators tonight. It goes without saying that they missed a golden opportunity to clinch the playoff berth tonight. And full credit to the Ottawa Senators, they brought their A game. Even without Brady Tkachuk in the lineup, they were physical, they were tenacious, they were on the puck nonstop, like a dog on the bone, and the Canadiens didn't have an answer for it. We'll talk about all the things that the Canadiens didn't do in this hockey game a little bit later. But one of the things that I can show you right off the cuff, because I've prepared it, is their absolutely putrid defensive coverage on all 3 goals. Now, start with the first goal. 28 seconds into the hockey game, and Shane Pinto, the same guy who said it was embarrassing that the Ottawa Senators lost to the Canadiens 3 times this year. It's bulletin board material, right? Seems like the Canadiens don't have a bulletin board in their locker room. He scores 28 seconds in to give the Senators a 1-0 lead, and there were all kinds of mistakes made on this goal. And here it is, so you can see it.
Bruce Caulfield tried to knock it free. Caden Cooley has really right the whole time up.
Right here.
Amadio.
You see in the corner, Caden Cooley loses his stick. Nick Suzuki, he's in support, but he's in a little bit too tight. And up at the top, you see Juraj Slafkovsky coming back into the picture because he was trying to jump the zone. If I continue, the puck goes in behind the net. And Suzuki chases behind the net. And that's the problem. That's where you're not supposed to go as a forward. And here it is. Again, for your benefit, Pinto's in front. Nobody's covering him. The only guy who's in the right position in this picture is Cole Caulfield because he's up on the boards sealing off the point. The only guy. All right. Gooley lost his stick. Hudson did the right thing to come in and help him. So he's in good position as well. But then you've got Slafkovsky who's trying to get an offensive opportunity or a jump on an offensive opportunity, but trying to get out of the zone quick. And now he's caught coming back because he sees that Pinto is open in front. And then you've got Suzuki watching the puck instead of watching the front of the net. And now I've told this to players time and time again, and coaches have told me this when I played. There's no need for you to chase a guy behind the net. Okay? That's why Gretzky was so effective, because people didn't dare chase him behind the net. And he made it, they called it his office for a reason. But when a guy's skating and he's in front of you and he's behind the net, you've taken yourself right out of the play because there's nothing you can do once he passes the far post to make a pass out front. Nothing. Instead, if you were to cut in front of the net, you would be able to get a stick there and still chase him down and cut the pass off to Pinto. So there's the mistake that was made on that goal. That's number 1. Then you look at the Dylan Cousins goal. This one was just as bad. It comes off a rebound off the pad of Montembeault, but if you watch,
offensive zone, the lane change happens, and then Clement to Montembeault with Cousins going to the.
And my problem with that goal, quite simply, is the fact that Dylan Cousins was covered by Jaden Struble, and instead of tying him up, he simply put his stick around his waist and tried to hold him. I'm sorry, but you can't hold hockey players like that. So the thing you got to do in that case is, one, either take a penalty or knock him on his ass and take a penalty. Don't let him get a stick free and get a shot on goal. That's the one thing you're not supposed to do as a defenseman. And granted, taking a penalty might not be the best thing to do in that situation, but if you're stopping a goal, I as a coach don't have a problem with it. But here's another thing for you, and this is just food for thought. Back when I played, I had a coach by the name of Sylvain Dubé who taught me a really neat trick. when it comes to players. And I incorporated that when I used to work in bars, when I used to have to throw somebody out. And that is, when you get somebody on their tiptoes, you can take them wherever they want to go. And so as a defenseman, you can put two hands on your stick, put the stick under their ass, lift ever so slightly, and push forward. And what happens? Automatically, the player goes on his tiptoes, and you could dictate wherever he goes. The minute he doesn't have balance, he's not able to get that shot away. Think about that for a minute. You just get him off balance. And it's the same thing that happened to the Canadiens. I'll explain that in a nutshell during the next segment. But think about it. No, that's not what happened. And then we go to the last bit, which is the Riley Gregg goal.
Tries to dislodge it, and it comes to Clement. Tyler Clement over to Montreal. He'll tee it up. Montreal the center.
Again.
Amadio center defense goes. Riley Gregg tips it home. Up to center over the line, where it curls away from Matheson, and he'll dump it off for Amadio. Center defense goes. Riley Gregg tips it home.
When you look, does the bulk of the work, taking it into the end zone, lays it behind the net. It's a set play. Amadio.
You got Carrier chasing behind the net, and Matheson watching the puck. And who's standing behind Matheson? Riley Gregg. And now, between you, me, and the four walls of this studio, the one thing that you teach every defenseman is that when the puck carrier is engaged, don't look to cut off a pass, cover a man. After all, Marty St. Louis preaches a man-to-man defense. You're not playing man-to-man if you're watching the puck and you don't have a man to cover. That's what happened to Matheson there. And that's where the game was lost, the minute that third goal went in. The fourth goal was a little bit of a lucky bounce off the heel of Newhook's skate and into the net. Not much you can do. And then the fifth goal into the empty net. And that's all she wrote. But by and large, the biggest issue here wasn't just the Montreal Canadiens' defense, but their forwards need to be a little bit better in their own zone. Right? And we saw that on the first goal. Suzuki chasing behind the net. Slavkovsky trying to get out of the zone early to try to get a jump on offense. You got to read the play. You've got to see what's going on. Gouli doesn't have his stick. Why are you trying to get out of the zone? Do you think it's going to be that easy? If anything, what you should do is keep that puck on the strong side if you're at Montreal. So why would you be jumping on the weak side to try to get the puck? There's no reason for it, right? And if the puck's coming up the strong side, then Slavkovsky could have covered Pinto, and that goal never goes in. But again, it's all a matter of circumstance. If Gouli doesn't lose his stick, then the Canadiens have good defensive coverage. But it happened, and they didn't adjust. Nobody was ready for it. And that's something they got to look at. They got to look at that video and say to themselves, you know what? We got to be better. Can't chase behind the net. Got to make sure we get the front of the net taken care of. And that's where the game was lost. It was in the house. The Canadiens gave away the house like it was going on sale via a real estate agent. The Senators could have lived there all day. All day. Especially when it came to Pinto, Amario, and who's the other guy on that line that I can't remember now? Gregg. Those three play together all the time. They kill penalties together, and they were in the house all day long. They could have made popcorn. And that's where the problem is. The Canadiens were giving too much of a gap. The Senators were coming in. They were taking the blue line easily. And then what was happening is that they were coming in numbers on the strong side. And the strong side is where the puck's coming in from. And on the weak side, they were driving deep into the zone to give themselves other options. The Canadiens didn't do that all day long. And I'll talk about that afterwards. But the forwards need to be better defensively. And there were spurts. You saw a play late in the third period that not in the third period, in the second period, that Sportsnet brought up, where Cole Caulfield came back and lifted the stick of Gregg before he can get a shot away and turn the puck back up ice. He did that last game too, so good for you. But then the rest of the game, there's no forecheck. They're not playing defense. So what exactly are the forwards doing? They weren't generating offense because, oh my God, there was nothing there. So what exactly were you doing all game? Just going through the motions? The only line that did anything on the ice today consistently was Anderson, Gallagher, and Dvorak. Other than that, everybody was on vacation. Why? Who knows? After 2 days rest, you would think they would be ready, right? They get a day off because they were so fatigued. On Thursday, they have a short practice and then Friday they leave for Ottawa in the morning. Like, seriously. It's an hour away from Montreal, an hour and a half. You're not going far. You could take a freaking bus for all they care. No. So what happened? I have no idea. But I can tell you something that was really bad in this hockey game that I think all of you could notice, and it wasn't the fact that Jack-Eye wasn't there. Sure, there was physicality in the first period early on, but once they got it out of their system, it kind of went away. It was kind of the same thing we saw in the Four Nations Cup in that game between the USA and Canada, where they had those 3 scraps in 9 seconds, and then everything stopped. Well, it was kind of the same thing. You know, the Canadians got behind 2-0. You had a little bit of a brouhaha between Gallagher and Stützle, and then the rest of the team came in. And then after that, other than the Pezzetta-Hodgson fight, nothing. So, you know, for all we needed the Sheriff in this game, the Sheriff hasn't been playing very well, and that's the reason why he's in the press box. So, will we see him tomorrow? Most likely, because somebody's got to sit after playing like ass. And, you know, for me, it's probably going to be Jane Struble because he got manhandled tonight. But that's just me. You know, Ryan Reeves is in there, so yeah, you can bring Jack-Eye in for, you know, for lack of a better option, for having somebody with a little bit healthier legs that might move a little bit. But then the biggest problem Montreal had tonight wasn't necessarily the fact that the forwards weren't supporting the D very much. Their puck management was absolutely gross. And, you know, you talk about puck management, and it's not just, you know, carrying the puck up the ice. What are you doing with it? Where's it going? Puck management has a lot of different moving parts, okay? One of them is your breakout. And the breakout, when you're coming out of your own zone, I've said this time and time again, you've got to be a little bit more clustered. You got to be tight, okay? So you've got to have the puck carrier, normally the defenseman coming out of your zone to start. You've got to have a winger or a forward swinging through. You've got to have somebody on support on the boards. And then you have the other defenseman, who's another option to be able to reverse the play on the other side. And then you've got one guy actually stretching the zone. One guy, not all 3 forwards. Therein lies the first problem. There's no cluster. Everybody's trying to get out of the zone quickly and trying to stretch the Ottawa D. But instead of that, the Senators were forechecking 2 guys on the puck carrier. Our defense was getting flustered, and they were just popping the puck out of the zone and dumping it out, getting to the red line, dumping it in. Why? Because they were getting pressured. In the first period, you saw Lane Hutson have all kinds of issues, and he's our best and most poised defenseman right now. And he was having issues getting the puck out. So think about that for a minute. A guy with Lane Hutson's skill was having problems moving the puck out of your zone. It's not because Hutson doesn't know what to do with the puck. Because Hutson didn't have options with the puck. And the second thing the Canadians did that they do all the time, which really annoys the piss out of me, is they use the half wall too much. They don't play between the dots. And the whole game is won between the dots. And I talked about the house before and how the Senators dominated the house. The house is the area that goes out from the post to the net, to the dots, and out to the top of the circles. That's your house. It looks like home plate, almost, right? And so if that's the area that's most important, that's in the middle of the ice, is it not? So shouldn't you be playing a little bit more in the middle of the ice? And I know what you're going to say. Coaches always tell you, take the ice they give you. Take the ice they give you. Take the ice they give you. That's a load of shit. It's not the same thing as it used to be 20 years ago. You can't take the ice they give you anymore. You have to create the ice you want. And in order to do that, you need to come out as a group. You need to have options to move the puck. And you can't keep dumping it in thinking that your forwards are going to go get it when nobody's ready to go jump in and try to dig the puck out. One of the things that I always got pissed off at the Canadiens power play about was the fact that they were always hammering the puck in along and giving it a hard rim. And on the opposite side, there was nobody coming in to pick up the puck. There was one guy. Normally, when you're on the power play, because you have the man advantage, you send 2 guys on the weak side as you go rim around the other one, right? The Canadiens weren't doing that. It would piss me off. And it's the same thing now, even at 5-on-5. The one thing that you do when you dump the puck in is you force the defenseman to turn his back. If you don't pressure the defenseman, he can turn around easily and just move the puck back up the ice. Wait a minute. Well, that's exactly what the Senators did tonight. And then they caught the Canadiens going the wrong way. Yeah, and hear me out here. It's not that I don't like the way the Canadiens normally play, because they play very well. We saw them in December absolutely do this time and time again on a regular basis. They would move the puck up in a group. That's why they were so dominant. They had somebody in the middle of the ice. They would control the mid-ice lane. They could control the neutral zone. The minute you control those two areas, you've won the hockey game. Unless your goaltender's a sieve, but that's another story for another day. But by and large, if you're managing the puck properly and you're taking care of it, especially in your own zone, you're going to end up on the right side of the ledger. But what happened here tonight is that the Senators would come in with a strong forecheck. They would force the Canadiens to make a decision before they were ready to make it, and the other players just weren't in position to be able to provide support. So your puck management turns to what? My lovely favorite play, the flip pass out of your own zone, or getting to the red line and just dumping it in. And what happens? The Senators just pick it up and turn it back the other way. And more often than not, when you watch the dump in, it's way too hard. You got to give your players time to get in there. Okay? So soften it up a little bit when you shoot it into the zone. You don't have to hammer it in like you're driving a nail through a piece of wood. Just flip it in. Give it a little chuck along the boards. Chip it off the glass. Let your forward get there. Right? You're not going to get a guy like Brendan Gallagher, who's one of the few guys along with Josh Anderson who can dig the puck out, if you're hammering it in all the time. Because they're driving a straight line to that area, right? And so if Anderson's coming in straight and you hammer the puck in hard, it's going to get by him before he even gets there. No. Softly. Think about it. Put it outside the trapezoid, put it in softly, don't let the goaltender play it, and just get in there and get it. Dig it out. Add a second player in support. So you get Anderson to come in on a soft dump, you get Dvorak to come in, and you get Gallagher in front of the net with the two defensemen. And suddenly, you've got position. Suddenly, you've got options. That wasn't happening. Instead, clap it into the zone, take a few too many icings along the way, and end up on the wrong side of a 5-2 score. That's what happened to the Canadiens tonight. So poor puck management, poor defensive coverage by their forwards. And that's something they're going to have to get out of their system quick, because tomorrow they have to take on the surging Leafs. They're playing extremely well under Craig Berube. Of course, offensively, you've got guys like Austin Matthews, William Nylander, who kills the Canadiens every single game for some reason, John Tavares, Mitch Marner. The list goes on and on. The defense is a lot stronger. Their goaltending has been good lately. It's not great, but it's a lot better than it's been. The fact they've been able to score goals ad nauseum almost, it puts them in a position where they don't care how many you're going to score, because they're going to score more than you. And that's essentially the whole game plan here. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going to try to outscore you. So how do you beat the Toronto Maple Leafs? You're the Montreal Canadiens. Exactly like I just told you. You manage the puck well. You put it in softly into the corners. You force the defense to make plays, but you allow your players to get in on the defense so they can take the body, get somebody in there in support, and move the puck around a little bit. That didn't happen tonight, and that's the reason why the Canadiens couldn't beat the Senators. Okay, they didn't get bad goaltending from Sam Montembeault. He really didn't have a chance on most of the goals because they were in so tight. And you look at that the Leafs are not going to be the team to get in there and smush it in front of the net. They're going to shoot from the outside because they've got one of the best wrist shots in the league in Austin Matthews. John Tavares can shoot from the outside, or he can drive the net, whatever he wants. Nylander's got a wicked wrist shot. Marner can stick handle in a phone booth. Morgan Riley can clap it. The list goes on and on. There's all kinds of tools for Toronto to beat Montreal. But so long as Montreal decides to possess the puck and manage it well, they're going to be fine. Absolutely no problem in playing against Toronto. But here's the bigger issue, and here's the one that worries me the most. If the Canadiens lose against the Toronto Maple Leafs tomorrow, there's 2 games left after that, Chicago and Carolina. And in thinking about that, one of the things that worries me the most is what happens if we don't beat Chicago. Sure, we've beaten Carolina earlier in the season, but Carolina is going into a playoff run, right? I think they're 3rd in the Metropolitan Division. Are they? Yeah, Metro or Atlantic? Can't remember what division they're in anymore. But anyway, they're 3rd in whatever division they're in. So think about that. Okay? Hang on. Let me take a quick look. Yeah, Carolina's in the Metropolitan. I was right about that. Never know anymore. But so tomorrow's game has a lot of significance. And here's the other thing. And this is what I was thinking. I don't know about you, but if I were Marty St. Louis, I would have started Dobish tonight. Not because I think he's a better goaltender than Montembeault, but I really would have wanted a fresh Montembeault against the Leafs tomorrow. He's your number one. This was his 61st game of the season. If he plays tomorrow, it's 62. And it's unfair to him to have him in both these games. You can't argue that point. Because if he's tired, if after tonight's game, he's tired tomorrow and he plays poorly, the entire world's going to shit on him. Oh, Montembeault cost the Canadiens a playoff spot. Can you imagine that discussion? I mean, it's not fair to him. I mean, I'm not the biggest Sam Montembeault fan in the way he plays, right? I like the story. I like where he came from and what he's be able to do with himself, and he can be extremely proud about that. He went from being an afterthought in Florida to being the starting goaltender in Montreal, to being part of the Four Nations Cup and being considered one of the better goaltenders in the league, despite the fact that he's got a .900 save percentage. I mean, he's done wonderful things. But at the same time, you don't want to burn the guy out. We've seen it, right? You remember the 2010 run with Jaro Halak was red hot. We got to the conference final, and he had nothing left. I mean, he carried the team through 2 rounds, right? But then he had nothing left. And you don't want to see that same thing with Montembeault. If you think about it, right? If we go into the playoffs and we make it in, right? And we go deep, there's a very strong possibility that he can end up playing close to 90 games almost. I don't know about you, but he's never been anywhere. His career high was 41 last year. You're almost double. You're going beyond double that if you make it deep into the playoffs. I mean, think about that, guys. It's not fair to him. And one of the other things I wanted to bring up was the Zebras again. Hey, the referees have to stop trying to manage a hockey game. Okay? I prefer referees that call what they see, not call what they think they saw. And we saw it tonight. Claude Giroux puts a stick in Patrick Laine's side and spins him. Laine gets called for holding the stick. He did hold it, but Giroux did hook him. Then Nick Suzuki takes a hooking penalty where all he did was tap the guy's stick. Never really hooked him. And that was makeup calls for the penalties they gave to the Ottawa Senators earlier in that period. That's not how the game's supposed to be called. All right? You're supposed to call it objectively. When Tim Stützle went in behind the net and he slew-footed Struble, no call on the play. That should have been called, and the referee was right there. So I don't know anymore. I don't know what's a penalty, what's not a penalty anymore. Other than maybe puck over glass, because that's the obvious one. But, you know, it's gone to a point where it's frustrating because when you don't know how the referees are going to call a game, it stops you from playing your best hockey. Back in the day when Kerry Gregson was around, Kerry Gregson and Kerry Fraser and Andy Van Helleman and Bill McCreary and Mick Magoo, when they were around, and even Dave Stewart to a certain extent, you knew what kind of game they were going to call. Not just because of the way they were consistent every game in and out, but they would actually take the time to go over and talk to coaches and say, Coach, next time that happens, I'm going to call it. You know, there's a famous story about Kerry Fraser telling Mark Crawford to shut up because he was ripping him a new one. He was swearing at him. Crawford kept going, and Fraser teed him up. So, you know, those are the things that lack in this game now. The referees, you never see them go over and talk to the coaches anymore. They go to the penalty box, they drink water, they don't give a shit. You know? During TV timeouts, that's when the guys are supposed to talk. That's when the coaches get the attention from the referees. The referee can go over and say, Coach, anything wrong? You don't have to rip the guy a new one. You can tell him you disagreed with a call. You can talk to him like a human being. He'll get it. And then he'll think about it. And maybe he'll be more consistent next time. No. Instead, no talking to the coaches. We end up with shitty calls. and game management as opposed to officiating. That's got to stop. So tomorrow night, let's see what the Canadiens bring to the table. Go Habs, go.